You know, on 9/11, Andrew McCarthy supervised the U.S. Attorney's Command Post near Ground Zero. He later served as the Deputy Secretary of Defense, a former federal prosecutor, and he's, of course, now a person who contributes to National Review. Andrew McCarthy joins us now on the anniversary of 9/11, on a day when the president just made a big speech about how we're going to contain a new terror threat. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning. How are you?
We're very good. Okay, so let's start with what the president said last night. Your thoughts about the president's take on how he's going to contain ISIS and his new strategy.
Well, I really think that to begin with this president, it's a lot more important what he does than what he says. As I pointed out in a column that went up before the speech at National Review yesterday, this is the same president who, after the Benghazi massacre, which, by the way, it's important to point out that Benghazi, which he did not mention in his speech, we're also at the second anniversary of the Benghazi massacre, an act of war that killed 4 Americans, including our ambassador to Libya. And the president said the number one rule of his presidency is that those who attack Americans have safe haven nowhere. Well, hundreds of jihadists were involved in the Benghazi attack, and that remains unavenged. But he is the same president who, after it was determined, after it was already known that we had been subjected to a terrorist attack at Benghazi, which had been coordinated by Ansar al-Sharia in Libya, which was run by a former Guantanamo Bay detainee, he turned around and released 55 more detainees about 2 weeks later. So I think with this guy, you really have to watch what he does and not get too caught up in what he says, because what he says today may not be the same thing he'll be saying tomorrow.
Andrew McCarthy, you were familiar with al-Qaeda and their designs on New York, of course. You were the U.S. attorney that prosecuted the blind sheikh who coordinated the 1993 bombing. Knowing al-Qaeda as well as you do, knowing what they did leading up to the 9/11 attacks, I got to ask you, when we look at ISIS today and al-Qaeda circa September 10, 2001, is it fair to say that the big difference between the two entities is that ISIS is actually better funded, better armed, they have more jihadis in their ranks, and ultimately is more dangerous? And if that's the case, is the president's response even close to appropriate?
Yeah, I'd say all that is not only so. That is to say that ISIS, which is just an al-Qaeda offshoot, by the way, ISIS is not only more powerful than al-Qaeda was before September 11th of 2001. Al-Qaeda is more powerful than it was before September 11th, 2001.
Wait, no, they've been decimated and they're on the run.
Well, they're on the run in some places, but they have safe haven in others. You know, we have been conducting some attacks on them, but the fact of the matter is they've gotten much stronger. And who is ISIS fighting in Syria and Iraq? They're fighting the regimes, the Assad regime and also the government in Libya, but they're also in a power struggle with al-Qaeda, particularly in Syria. And that right now ISIS has the upper hand, but over the last year that has swung back and forth. So one of the things I find remarkable in the debate that we've seen over the last few weeks is this notion that ISIS is 10 feet tall and they're somehow different and more ferocious than al-Qaeda, when in fact they just are al-Qaeda. They're another offshoot of them. All they're doing is what al-Qaeda has been doing all along, including the beheadings. And while we are obsessed with ISIS, the fact is that under President Obama's watch, al-Qaeda has gotten stronger.
We only have a few seconds.
ISIS.
We only have a few seconds left because we're going to be moving to special coverage as we remember the events of 9/11. But you were there that day. Your thoughts as you think back of what happened 13 years ago today?
To me, it was a nation-altering day. I think it's really unfortunate that we've lost the spirit of American resolve that for a time after 9/11 was pretty evident every place. And I think, unfortunately, we've, in bending over backwards to make sure that we didn't offend Muslims while while responding to our enemies. I think we've gone too overboard, and as a result, question ourselves when we have to take action to protect the United States.
We'll have to leave it right there. Andrew McCarthy, thank you so much.